But this meeting is being held in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 at SEC. It has been properly advertised and certified by the secretary. And this is the reorganizational portion of our regular meeting of the Hopatcong Borough Land Use Board for January 18th, 2022. The first order of business would be to have a flag salute. Mr. Gilbert, do you have the flag that you can pull up?
Yes, I do.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to
to the
the
republic for which it stands,
republic
one nation, under
Under
God,
America.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like also to have a moment of silence for Bill Dunnigan's sister who passed away today.
Bill O'Connor.
Bill O'Connor.
O'Connor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, our first order of business now on the agenda would be nominations for chairperson for the Hopatcong Borough Land Use Board for the year 2022. Do we have any nominations?
Nominate Alan Gilbert.
I second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, roll call.
Okay. Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Tappan.
Yes, yes,
Wait,
yes.
is Mr. Ray, are you still here? Yes, you are. Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Delarina,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler. Councilman Schindler?
Rich
I think it's frozen.
Rich,
On delay.
Schindler,
wait.
I'll come back to him. Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler?
I'm gonna say he needs to, I'm gonna tell him to nod.
His whole screen looks frozen.
Yeah, I think he's having technical difficulties.
Hmm.
okay, we could do it without him.
Enough, yes.
Mr. Chairman, would you like
Keep
me to
going on
proceed
together.
or you can?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
We will ask for nominations for the position of vice chairperson for the board 2022. Do we have any such nominations?
I nominate Bob Ray.
Second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Tappan,
Yes, yes,
Mr. Delarina,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler, Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Bill, still yours.
Thank you.
Okay.
Meeting schedule
Mhm.
for the year 2022. We have one meeting in January, that is tonight, two in February, March, and April, two in May, one in June, two in July, August, September, October, one in November, two in December, and then one reorganizational meeting. The reason we only have one in June, I believe, is because of the convention that the mayor and councilman will probably be at. Is that correct?
That's a primary? Is there a primary then?
Might be.
Yeah, that's
No.
primary.
The league is in November.
yeah.
the league is in November. Okay, the
League is
primary
much
is in
later.
June.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the calendar?
So moved.
Okay, you got a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mr. Dellarino,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler. Okay. Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay, to designate the New Jersey Herald and New Jersey Sunday Herald, if not available, the Daily Record. Motion is ordered to adopt the resolution designating the official newspapers of the Borough of Hopatcong. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
That was Bob Ray made the motion, and the second was by Mark Gaffney.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mr. Dellarino,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler.
He's trying to come in.
I just keep calling in case he comes back.
Yeah,
Mayor
he's
Francis,
trying.
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes.
There he is.
Resolution to require disclosure contracts. A motion is in order to accept. So
I'll move that.
resolution authorizing the award of required disclosure contracts for the professional services.
So
Is
moved.
there a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mayor Francis, second by Mr. Tappan.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Dellarino,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler. Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. And a motion is in order to appoint Nicole Fazio as the secretary for the Land Use Board of the Borough of Hopatcong for the year 2022. Is there a
so
motion?
moved, so
Motion
moved,
by Judy,
yes,
I'll second.
second by Bob Ray.
Thanks. Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yeah.
Mr. Dellarino,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler. Nope. Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Minutes.
Thanks for
The
having me back, guys.
minutes of December 21st, 2021 were distributed electronically. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes beyond the ones that were already forwarded to the secretary? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Francis made the motion, second by Bob Duncan.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mr. Dellarino,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler. Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Before we continue, let me point out that on the new applications, the third one, Teresa Pesky, block 31603, lot 22.02, 496 River Styx Road, will not be heard tonight. She did not get all of the required information into us, and there may be some people here who have come to hear the application and to comment on it. If so, that will be heard on February 15th. You should be receiving another notice, but that will not be heard tonight. So let's continue. Correspondence. We have one piece of correspondence, and it has to do with one of the new applications. So I will put that off until we get to the application. We have no continued applications. We have new applications beginning with IAT Reinsurance, Block 40005, Lot 4, 288 Lackawanna Drive. The applicant would like to remove an existing barn and driveway and replace the barn and driveway outside of the floodway. Variances being requested, et cetera, et cetera. So who is here to represent IAT Reassurance, Hudson Farm?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Bankendorf from the law firm of Askin and Hooker, representing IAT Reinsurance.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, there's also John Wunderlich. He's going to be appearing on behalf of the applicant. And we also have Kelly Osuck.
Okay, those people will have to be sworn in. So if they will raise their right hands, and our attorney will swear them in.
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And your witnesses, if Mr. Wunderlich, could you state your full name?
John Wonderly.
And Mr. Wunderlich, what is your affiliation with the applicant?
The property manager.
All right. And Mr. Osuch?
Kelly Osuch, apostrophe S-U-C-H, professional engineer, applicant's engineer.
Okay. And you're licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Yes,
Have you testified before this board?
not this board, no.
Okay. You were active in preparing the plans that are submitted to the board?
Yes,
And you've testified before other boards, I take it, land use boards, zoning boards?
yes,
Yes, okay.
Okay, is there any objection to accepting Mr. Osuch as an expert witness? Okay, we will accept him as an expert witness, and we will ask Mr. Benkendorf to continue.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, property address 288 Lackawanna Drive, Hopatcong, New Jersey, obviously, block 40005, lot 4. This is a 36.9 acre lot that sits in the residential development zone. Presently, we're here before the board seeking two variances. The first variances has to do with the distance from Lubbers Run. Currently, the barn that sits on the property is 40 feet from Lubbers Run. Applicant actually seeks to move that further away from Lubbers Run at 45 feet. We'll get testimony from Mr. Osuch on that. And additionally, the barn that currently exists on the property, although it is less than 18 feet in height, applicant seeks a variance to prepare and provide a new barn that is actually over the 18 feet in height. And again, here to testify tonight is civil engineer Mr. Osuch.
Okay. I think there might be one more nonconformity. I don't think we have a problem with that, Mr. Benkendorf, but you'll provide testimony as to the size of the barn. I'm just wondering whether the size of the barn is in excess of the permitted size for an accessory structure. It looks like it's fairly large, but if so, we can deal with that tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Osuch, if you're ready, I'll have you testify to the applicant's application.
sure. Am I allowed to share the screen to show the plans for the board members?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
What you see before you is the plan set that was submitted to the board as part of this application. Basically, this is just the cover sheet. So I'll start with the existing conditions plan, which is sheet 2 of 4. What you see before you is the existing property, which, as Mr. Beggendorf noted, is block 40005, lot 4 in the borough of Hopatcong. It is 36.98 acres. And the existing property has a residential dwelling, an existing barn, and an associated driveway that connects to Lackawanna Drive, which is the access point for the property. In the middle of the property, or middle of the plan set, is an existing stream known as Luber's Run. Luber's Run has NJDEP regulated areas associated with that, which include a 300-foot riparian zone, which is this dimension here noted in blue. It has a floodway, which is noted in this black line coming through here, and a flood hazard area line, which is this red line running through as well. There's also some associated wetlands on the property, and they have a 150-foot transition area, which is this orange line shown here. As Mr. Bankendorf noted, the property is within the residential plan development zone, the RPD zone for short. And all the uses proposed and existing are in conformance with the zoning as far as a use perspective. So getting into the proposed development, or the proposed project, sheet 3 of 4 here is showing what is proposed. The existing barn near the stream, which on the previous sheet is kind of located towards the center of the property. This is a zoomed in view of it. The applicant proposes to remove the existing barn and construct a new barn in the relatively same location, just further to the south, to get the proposed barn out of the floodway line here. So the existing barn is within the floodway. The idea would be to get the new barn located out of the floodway. The existing location of the barn from to the edge of the stream is at 26.4 feet. The proposed barn will be 39.9 feet away from the edge of the stream. This, as Mr. Bankendorf noted, is a variance, as the township ordinance requires any structure to be 50 feet away from a stream or lake. The proposed barn is also exceeding in the height, and I can get into that in a little bit later here. I'll try to get through some of this existing, or more the footprint area stuff. The proposed, or the existing area of the proposed barn, or the existing barn that's not being built on, will be revegetated in accordance with DEP standards within the regulated area. All work being proposed within these regulated areas will conform with DEP standards, and any necessary permits will be obtained as a condition of any approval, should the board make an approval on the application. The footprint of the barn is a little bit bigger than what's previously, or what's existing currently. The existing barn's 919 square feet, and the proposed barn is 1,260 square feet. It's basically just to increase the size for the equipment that is being used on the property to maintain the 37-acre property. The applicant just needs a little bit more room to store all the equipment properly. As I noted, the existing barn is being replaced mainly due to the fact that the existing barn is not in exceptional shape. And I'd like to kind of provide some photos as an exhibit, if that's allowed by the board.
Go ahead.
So what's being provided in front of you is a set of photos taken recently by the applicant of the existing barn. And as you can see in kind of this first photo, a section of the barn, it's wood clad exterior, and it's starting to deteriorate on the southern facing wall here. This is the garage doors here, you can see are in almost complete disrepair, as well as some of the wood siding on top of that. And this is just another photo of that as well.
And these were taken recently?
Mr. Wunderlich, if you're available, you could probably chime in. I believe they were taken in the last few days.
Maybe we should enter them into the record as exhibits.
We'll enter them in as exhibits 1 to A1, A2, A3 in the sequence that they were presented.
Okay.
The photos were taken earlier today.
Thank you.
And then there's just some additional photos from the interior of the barn, just to also kind of reiterate that it's in relative disrepair. You can kind of see some mold and stuff growing on the walls within the barn. So I just wanted to kind of make it clear that the reason to kind of take this barn down and replace it is a function of the barn basically needing too much work than it's worth, and it's easier to just replace it with a new barn.
Those final photographs, the last 2 will be marked as A4 and A5, showing the interior of the barn. Okay.
So as Mr. Benkendorf noted, we are seeking 2 variances. I believe both variances would qualify as C1 due to the size of the property and the location of the existing barn and the existing stream running through the property. They are kind of all tied together. The setback from the stream, the existing barn currently exists, and it's already in violation of that 50-foot setback. The applicant is somewhat improving that variance by pulling the barn back to 39.9 feet. It is still less than 50. The reason we couldn't go all the way back to 50 is we start to get into some steeper slopes if we start pushing the barn further back, and it just becomes a more of a grading exercise and becomes more of a disturbance problem with the site than is required, in my opinion. The height is also, I believe, a C1 in that the size of this property requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of equipment to maintain the property adequately. And to do so, the applicant needs a larger barn with a higher ceiling height to properly store the materials and hide them away from being outside and just stored outside to not only screen them from the neighbors, but also to protect the equipment so that it lasts. And further,
what equipment would require such a height?
Mr. Wunderlich, you wanna-
Tractors, backhoes, such. It's a actively woodland managed property. So,
Okay, thank you.
And then lastly, I believe there's really no negative impacts associated with both variances, the height and the setback to the stream. The setback to the stream, we're improving what's already there. And the height, the site is, as Mr. Wunderlich just noted, it's heavily wooded, and the difference in height will be virtually unnoticeable from the street or any neighboring property. The nearest residence is more than 500 feet away from this particular barn, with plenty of woods in between. So you're not going to see the barn, and if you can see the barn, at the 22-foot height versus an 18-foot height is going to be basically you're not going to see the difference at that distance. We did receive a letter from the board's engineer. We've reviewed that, and He had one note, or a couple notes here regarding underground utilities. The existing barn is served by underground electric. The applicant intends to disconnect the underground electric that currently exists with the existing barn and reconnect it to the new barn. The electrical conduit's already in the ground. It's just a function of reconnecting. And those locations would be shown on a revised set of plans. The engineer had a question as to the lock rating requirements and whether or not any design waivers are being sought. We believe, I reviewed the ordinance, believe we comply with all design standards, and there would be no additional design waivers sought as part of this application. And the height noted for the architectural plans would be updated on the architectural plans.
And can you tell me the height of the doors?
Excuse me?
The height of the doors?
The garage doors?
Yes.
You want those on the plans as well? Is that correct?
Well, I would like to know what they are. Mr. Wunderlich indicated that they want to put backhoes in there, and I just want to know what the height of the doors is.
I do not know off the top.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Garage doors typically go on 2-foot measurements. The backhoe is 12'8" tall, so the door is 14 foot.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. There's no living quarters in this barn, right?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
no living quarters, no, other utilities other than just the electric.
Okay.
And there was a question about the size of the accessory structure. Is it in conformance?
Is there a specific section of the
Well,
ordinance?
yeah, we'd have to know what the area of the home it would be, the floor
Half
area,
the size of the home.
the floor area of the home, the footprint,
The footprint or the floor?
the footprint of the
Of
home.
the home?
All the other roof structures on the property.
Give me a minute here. I have to find what the existing footprint of the house is.
Mr. Wunderlich, do you know offhand?
No, I don't offhand.
I think even in this ordinance, there's a regulation of the accessory structure. Floor areas wouldn't exceed 1/2 the floor area, the principal structure of the home. If there is that deviation, the board would be authorized to grant the variance relief requested.
So the house would need a floor area of basically 2,400 square feet, right, Bill? I mean, it'd be 50% of that.
Yeah, that's right.
And assuming we don't have any gazebos or anything else on the property.
36 acres, right?
36.94, I believe. So
Yeah,
almost
that-
37.
Big
The-
property.
Big
Yeah, and
property.
it's combined with the 2 lot blocks in Byram as well. So, I mean, it's
Hmm.
all.
Did you still want me to confirm that footprint of the existing structure?
Well, I think that needs to be confirmed before everything is done. I think we can go ahead and approve it conditionally and just make sure that you come up with those measurements.
Okay, understood.
Okay,
Okay, are there any other questions or concerns by the board? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Gonna open it to the public, Al?
yep.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's open this to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this application, question it or comment on it? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen as Mr. Farrell or Ms. Farrell has done and click on the raise hand icon. Ron, you want to?
Yep, yeah, Ms. Farrell, you're on.
Mr. Farrell there. Thank you very
Mister, I'm
much.
sorry.
That's quite all right. Didn't
They
have my
don't show
camera on.
gender on
I
Zoom
know.
when you don't appear.
I know. I just had some basic questions that I don't think were answered, but please correct me if I was wrong. So there was a request for the variance on the height of the
Mr.
building.
Farrell, you have to be sworn in by our attorney
Oh,
first.
I'm
Gonna
sorry. Go ahead.
testify, we'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
And your full name, sir?
James William Farrell II.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
I
Where
just
do you live, sir?
495 River Styx Road in Hopatcong, New Jersey.
Thank you.
So I just had some basic questions, I think, just out of my own general interest. So there was a request here for a variance for the building to exceed 18 feet, because I think the existing structure is 18 feet. But I don't
18
think
feet height.
in height, right? But I don't think it was specified how high the proposed structure was supposed to be. And I guess the follow-up question from there is that it was also indicated that the garage door would be 14 feet, but 14 would seem to be less than 18. So I guess I'm curious to know why more than 18 feet is needed.
Okay, well, I think the testimony was that the garage height would be 22 feet. Am I correct with that?
That's correct.
22.48 feet.
22.48?
Yes,
And this is going to have a peaked roof?
correct.
The picture of the other barn showed a loft. Correct? Has a loft in it,
Correct.
so that's why it's higher than 14 feet.
Got it. So then there's the inclusion of this loft, which increases the square footage of this particular structure, have any bearing on the variances required with the other structures and related rules?
You know, it's the
No.
footprint. There's a
Total
separate
footprint.
variance for height, and then it's really the footprint compared to the footprint of the home and the other accessory structures.
Got it. I think that was the only technical question I had, but I just had one other comment. Is the pictures that were presented in exhibits seem to be of a structure that was just poorly maintained. And so I understand a new barn is always great, and I'd love to have a new barn as well. But if the board accepts these variances, and what checks and balances are in place to know that the new structure is going to be, maintained any better than the old structure? It seems like the
Well,
old
first
structure
of
got
all,
into
it's not
pretty
wood.
bad. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
It's a
there
pole
probably are no checks and balances any more than there would be with someone's home until the property becomes in such disrepair that it becomes essentially a nuisance. But there really are no controls any more than there would be with someone's dwelling house.
Got it. Thank you very
It
much
also shows
for
the
entertaining.
flood zone. Pulls back from the flood zone a little bit. So that's a plus.
Sounds good. Thank you, board, for entertaining my questions. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, you're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for asking. Is there anybody else who would like to comment or question this application? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Would somebody from the board like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion was made by Mayor Francis. You're
You're on
muted, Nicole.
mute.
Who was the second?
I am Anthony Bongiovanni.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes,
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Dellarino.
Yes.
Is Councilman Schindler back? Yes. Are you Councilman Schindler?
Yes.
Yes.
Delay. Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank
You
you.
have our approvals.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, next we have Greg Sumgen, block 10810, lot 18, 13 Point Pleasant Road. The applicant would like to remove a detached garage, construct an attached garage, expand the second story over the first floor footprint, raise the boathouse and seawall, and construct a dock. And there are various variances being requested. Mr. Sumgen, I think, is here. Is there anyone else who's going to be testifying with you, Mr. Sumgen?
Yes, Mr. Heffley is here as my attorney.
Okay, Mr. Heffley.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Bern on behalf of the, as the chairman correctly stated, this is an application essentially to renovate a lakefront home that's located in Point Pleasant Road over in that section of town. The applicant purchased this property from the Impinks some 6 months ago, and the property itself was originally developed approximately 100 years ago. And so as a result of structures, there are a number of on the property, all of which are old, and all of the buildings and structures are in various states of disrepair. And what the applicant has decided to do here with this property, rather than piece all of the repairs to the structures and whatnot, he's decided to make the effort and spend money for complete and what I would call comprehensive renovation of the property. And so in doing that, specifically, there's an existing attached garage on the property that doesn't really make a lot of sense the way that it's placed there, and that those detached garages, although we have many of them in town, planning today, we've better having those garages attached. And so we're proposing to remove that old detached garage, attach it to the building. We're also proposing to renovate the building itself, as well as raise up a boathouse that is also in disrepair. Most importantly, is sinking into the lake. So we propose to raise that some 3 feet also to, one, to get it out, to rebuild that structure. And I think that Mr. Somjan has provided a thoughtful approach here in doing this, really overbuilding the property. And he does reduce the impervious coverage on the lot, improve some of the setbacks, and he's utilizing a lot of what's on the property today. We do trigger a number, and as the chairman noted, but all of these variances, and we'll go through them, are relatively minor variances, and they're all driven by shape and size and configuration lot. So they're all basically C-part variants. And I argue that the testimony is going to show that the benefits of the redevelopment are going to outweigh any detriment with regard to proposed variances.
Mr. Heffley, you're breaking up. Your audio is not very good.
Okay. Can I see if I can, is that any better?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
If Mr. Somjan is going to be testifying, he'll have to be sworn in by our attorney.
Okay, well, we can swear Mr. Somjan in if you like. I have one item I wanted to review with the board, and let's swear Mr.
Let's swear Mr. Somjan in first.
Okay.
Somjan, you want to raise your right hand, please, and Bill Haggerty will swear you in.
Mr. Somjan, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you're an owner of the subject property?
I am.
Okay, Mr. Heffley, I think the first order of business may be the issue in regard to the non-conforming use of the property with two residential structures. I note that your plan includes what appears to be on the last sheet, the insurance plat from, why am I not thinking of it?
Yeah, this is a Sanborn map.
Sanborn map, thank you. And on that Sanborn map that's included with the packet, where is the property that we're talking about?
So just by way of history here, the Sanborn map and the history of the site, we got that from Marty Kane at the Historical Society. And he was able to confirm for us that that cottage, and as a matter of fact, all of the structures that are on the property were there back in 1925. And he was able to show us that by virtue of the Sanborn map. So if you look at the map itself, and you take a look at Point Pleasant Road, if you see that where it's demarcated on the plan, Point Pleasant Road.
Bill, do you have that?
It's at the right bottom corner of the last page of the plans that were presented to the board.
Yeah. So if you take a look at the Sanborn map, I mean, there's various roads on there, but you'll see exactly where, if you just take a look at Lake Hopatcong, you'll see where Point Pleasant is, and you'll see Point Pleasant Road.
And a large part of that section, it looks like a peninsula. There's Point Pleasant Club there.
Yes.
And where is this property in relationship to that?
Okay, so if you take a look at where it says Point Pleasant Road, and you take a look at the T on the word Pleasant, you'll see, looking up, our property with the three structures, actually four structures that we have now on the property right there. You'll see the cottage up front, then comes the detached garage, then comes the main house, and then at the bottom, you'll see the boathouse. And that, again, it's across the street from the Justimere Lodge. This was a cottage that was one of the rental cottages, one of the historical rental cottages that the Justimere Lodge actually rented out back at the turn of the century. And so that rental lodge and that configuration of our property was actually around before 1925. But as you can see, all of the structures that we currently have on our property are on this 1925 Sanborn map. And Marty Kane has confirmed the use of that for us, as a rental cottage, along with others along the street that were rented out by the Justimere Lodge, which owned all of Point Pleasant, I would note. There were no other structures on Point Pleasant, just the Justimere Lodge and its various cottages. So
there were,
and that's why we submitted that.
Yeah, there were three structures plus the boathouse then.
That's correct.
And the letter D, it appears, would stand for dwelling, I take it. That's
Right.
So at some point, the garage erupted into from a house, a small little cottage?
It does look that way, yes.
Any idea when that was done? 'Cause that seems to be a structure out there.
Yep, I don't know when that was done, but that garage is one of the items that's going to be raised as part of this application, so that's not going to be there anymore.
What about the cottage?
What about the?
Well, the cottage is going to remain as it was in 1925. No changes to the cottage.
Bill, does that satisfy us as far as pre-existing condition?
Well, we certainly know that it existed well before the adoption of the ordinance, and structures, if they've been there continuously thereafter, you're fine. It would have been perhaps a little helpful if we had some additional information other than the Sanborn map. The Sanborn map, however, is the gold standard. I'll put it that way. So,
Well, I would like to have testimony from Marty Kane.
mhm.
I mean, if he says that Marty has verified it, then I'd like to have testimony from Marty.
Mhm.
What's the deal with historical structures? If that's historical, do we have, is the house historical? Is the boathouse historical?
Well, when I say historical, it dates back to the Justimere Lodge. So historical is not in the sense of architectural, if you will. I use it in the sense of timing. So, but Mr. Chairman, definitely had this researched by Marty Kane, and there's absolutely no problem in having him verify what I just said and having him come in and testify. So
Okay.
the applicant has no issue with that.
Mr. Heffley, I'd suggest that you provide to the board tax records. Hopatcong is very good with this. Some of the other municipalities aren't so good with the records, but Hopatcong has tax assessment records that go back many, many years. And I think if you get those, it will show the structures on the property, maybe not before the adoption of the ordinance, but certainly shortly thereafter, and it would be beneficial to have those records.
Yeah, and you know, it's hard for us to go forward without a D variance until we take care of the non-conforming use, the pre-existing
Okay.
non-conforming use.
No, I understand that, Mr. Chairman. I think, and we're happy to provide that. I mean, I understand that that's a legal requirement and you want to have the testimony itself. And I can promise you the testimony and the tax maps will bear it out, because I don't think anybody made up this 1925 Sanborn map. But we can most certainly come back and we can bring Marty with us.
Okay. I think with that.
Can I interject
that
something?
Understanding, I think we can go forward without a D variance. So the mayor and councilman will not have to recuse themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, but the mayor and councilman won't be able, the application will be presented as a unit because it will ask for an intensification of the pre-existing non-conforming use because there is an addition being constructed on the home. So I don't think that they should participate because we're going to get there during this hearing process.
Okay.
We're going to cross that bridge very shortly.
Okay.
I'll
then-
recuse myself, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll recuse myself also.
Thank you very much. Then we seat a couple of our alternates.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Okay. So having addressed that issue, I think what we'll do, Mr. Chairman, is we'll proceed with the merits of our application here with the understanding that we're going to bring Marty Kane back for additional testimony at the end.
Okay.
Can I just interject something quickly?
Sure,
ahead.
Mr. Somjen.
So I just need to be, I want to clarify a few things. Mr. Kane was kind enough to provide this map. And I know Marty, because he's part of the Lake Hopatcong Foundation, and he's always provided me historical photos whenever I ask them based on, me knowing him. I just want to state that he's not an expert witness that I can pay to necessarily come back and do this. So Mr. Heffley, I just want to be clear that I didn't ask Mr. Kane to come testify. I don't know if he would be willing to, if this is part of something in his volunteer efforts running the foundation, that he would be willing to come. So, he gave us the information. He shared a lot of the history with me when we were looking to purchase the property. And so the documents, no question, came from him, in fact, through the selling attorney when we were asking about the conformance of this. But I don't want to mislead anyone. I don't know if Mr. Kane would be willing to come and do this. I just don't know. He's not, he's not a paid professional. I don't know if you would accept money if I asked him, or if you would do it as the goodness of his heart. So I just want to be clear that, this was provided by him, and all the information that we've researched has indicated that this predates any zoning that has been there forever. And to speak to, I don't know the attorney's last name, it just says William on his screen, but I do have a copy of the tax records with me that I got from the tax department that actually show a separate card for the cottage. And you're right, it shows it a little bit later than 1925, but I could show you that now if that would be interest on my screen. But I just want to be clear that I'd hate to have to come back for a second meeting. And between now and then, Mr. Kane say to me, Greg, with all due respect, I gave you that as a courtesy and I gave you my general knowledge of the place, but I can't commit him to coming. And I don't want that to jeopardize our application.
Okay. Well,
We understand that, and Mr. Heffley will address that, but we also, it would be beneficial to have before the board and not put up on your screen tonight necessarily the tax assessment records going back as far as we can get them. And frequently in Hopatcong, they go back into the 80s and 70s. So that would be
So-
very helpful to have.
Can I make a suggestion? I think what might make some sense, and I'll leave it to Mr. Haggerty and the chairman, but I think what might make some sense, I mean, it's obvious that Mr. Somjan has had direct conversations with Mr. Kane. So I don't think, I mean, at the very least, I am quite sure that I can get a letter out of Marty Kane confirming these discussions. We can also submit the tax record cards to confirm it. And I think that I definitely could take that as a condition that we would, provide that in writing from Marty Kane, as well as provide the tax record cards, and maybe that would be sufficient.
I think if Mr. Heffley presents a statement from Mr. Marty Kane that authenticates the map that was presented, the land-borne map taken from the records that he has in that regard, that should be sufficient for the board's purposes. But I do think we need those assessment records as well to show the continuity of the
Okay.
use.
We will definitely agree to supply that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so then let's continue on with the application in chief here. So the plans that are before you, Mr. Somjan prepared these plans. They've been submitted, and I'm going to ask Mr. Somjan to walk through these plans. Now, the board should understand that Mr. Somjan is also an architect in New Jersey. That's why he's so good at these plans, and that's why they're so nicely drafted. Now, he's going to be testifying as the owner of the property, but he may ask, there may be some questions, and he may provide some architectural testimony. So I would ask Mr. Haggerty if you want me to go through his qualifications as an architect, or if you want to just proceed with him
I
as
think
the owner.
it would be helpful. Yeah, I think that would be helpful because I was curious on the second page, there's a designation space for the architect and it's crossed out. It's blacked out. And I've been curious about why that would be, and perhaps that'll be
Okay.
brought to.
Okay, so we can just do that. So, Mr. Somjan, could you just give the board just the benefit of your professional educational background?
Sure. My name is Greg Somjan. I'm a licensed architect both in New Jersey and multiple other states throughout the country. I founded a firm 30 plus years ago. That firm is Perrette Somjan Architects in Rockaway. I've been practicing as a principal in that firm for 30 plus years. To answer the question asked by the attorney for the board, it is the story of the shoemaker's son. And what I mean by that is my firm practices higher ed, K-12 corporate work. We do very little residential. So while I developed the designs, I had a colleague of mine do the actual production work to create the drawings for me, since I was not really have the resources in my office to do the drawings for the residential project. So we debated on whether I should just submit them as a homeowner. And then so the blacked out sheet, the blacked out information you see on the second sheet was the architect, my colleagues from my colleague's firm. And I told them I would just sign and seal the drawings so that they didn't have to worry about coming to testify or anything else, because all they did was the production work for me. So I trust that clarifies how these drawings came to be.
And you would sign and seal these drawings then?
I'd be happy to. Yes, absolutely.
Have you before this board before?
I did appear before this board years ago. Yes.
15 or so? 12, 15?
It could be, yeah.
Okay, but just to be clear, Greg, these plans here are for your own personal residence, obviously. That's why you're doing this. You
That's
live at
correct.
this house, and you're looking to make this your home on the lake, right?
Correct.
Okay, for your permanent residence, right?
Well, right now, it's not going to be a permanent residence, but part of the
Okay.
goal here is for seasonal use. And then my wife and I are talking about this being our retirement home.
Okay, good. Now, with that being said, again, let's get back to the plans and let's walk through for the board what we have out there right now and what we're proposing to do.
All right, so I will share my screen. Hold on, let me move some people around here.
Mr. Chairman, is this audio coming in any better right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm going to continue what I'm doing.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Mr. Samjian, we have your screen.
Okay, you can see the drawings?
Yes.
So the drawings you have before you were set up in the hopes that it would make following the proposed work easy. The site plan all the way to the left is evidence of what is there today, taken from a survey prepared by a licensed surveyor, Richard Hudson. Let me get it so it basically shows the street, the cottage, the detached garage, the existing dwelling, existing decks, and the existing boathouse. The second site plan shows what we are removing, and the third site plan shows what we are proposing. Cottage is remaining. We are removing the detached garage and bringing it to the existing house so that in winter months, in clement weather, after you park the car, you don't have to walk across the yard to get into the home. We are also relocating the front door to a more prominent location visible from the street for guests, where today it's shoved over into the corner behind the property out of sight. The boathouse, as was indicated earlier, has been in place for many, many decades. And based on the age and the exposure to the main lake, there's evidence of the boat, the studs and the framing rotting. And, it was built in a time when boats were smaller, when the lake was perhaps lower and not as busy. And so we're basically replacing it within the same footprint. We're just raising it up. I think it's 3.5 feet to get it out of the water. I'll jump ahead. There was a question asked about this is an existing 2-story structure, and the second floor was a recreational area used by the Impinks. It had a little pool table and some chairs, and it is our intent to make use of it in that same exact way. There won't be any renters in there. There won't be any bedrooms in there. It's basically an area that exists that we would be using for recreation purposes.
Is there plumbing in there?
There is not plumbing.
And there won't be plumbing.
Other than a pump that we put in the lake for irrigation purposes and maybe a spigot just to wash things down, correct. We have no intention of putting any plumbing into the boathouse.
Wait, the boathouse or the second floor of the dwelling?
Right now, I was referring to the second floor of the boathouse.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so the second floor of the boathouse was used as recreation, does not have any plumbing in it now. We don't intend to put any plumbing into it other than the little pump in the lake for irrigation and to wash things down.
Okay, and to the on the right side of the boathouse, as you're looking at the drawing,
Yes.
you have a 2-foot wide pier.
Yeah, so we wanted to try to add one additional boat slip there. As you can see, the existing wall is somewhat awkwardly shaped. And so to accommodate one other boat, we tried to put a slip in there. It came to my attention after the fact that the 2 foot is actually below and requires a variance. So Mr. Heffley and I spoke that if it's the board wishes, we would happily increase that to 4 foot and thus eliminate that variance altogether.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, should I go on to the floor plans?
Yes,
Are there any
go
questions
ahead.
about the site plan? Okay.
So Greg, let's go on to, first of all, with regard to the boathouse, I think we're done with that. The second story is going to be used the same as it is today. You're basically just renovating that and lifting it up 3.5 feet. We're going to do away with the pier variance for the 2 feet, and you're going to agree to spend the extra money and time to put in a 4-foot section there. So with that said, let's move on to the house itself. We're sort of going from the lake to the street, I guess. So let's go to the house.
Correct. So what you have before you is a simplified floor plan and elevations. And essentially, the proposal is that the footprint of the existing building will remain unchanged. We are proposing that the second floor will be rebuilt. Right now, it's a very narrow section that consists of living space upstairs. We are proposing to take it out to match the footprint of the existing building but we are not expanding the existing building's footprint at all. And then, as you can see, we are taking the detached garage and attaching it to the house for the reasons I stated earlier, inclement weather, snow, bringing in groceries. It's just easier to manage when a garage is attached to the home. It will also free up the front yard and give a more line of sight, a better line of sight, a more open front lawn.
Okay, and Greg, as part of that, you're going to obviously take out that impervious coverage of the paved area, which is in the center site plan, all of the pink area and the garage, all of that's going to come out and that's going to become green space, right?
That is correct. As stated on the site plan, the calculations, right now, for reasons I couldn't tell you, over time, there's been a lot of pavement added to this property. And so in an effort to improve what is there, we are taking some of that up, which is how we got to the reduction of the percentages.
Okay, and I just want to review also, I mean, the garage side yard setback right now is such that by attaching it to the house, you improve that nonconformity also, right?
I believe that is correct. I could go back to the site plan if you like.
Well, I'm looking at it. So the side yard setback variance for the new garage is less than what you have existing, so you improve that condition.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay. And the new attached garage is going to be architecturally, obviously, part of a renovation of the entire structure to make it all look uniform. And you're going to have all new siding on this property. Essentially, the pictures on the plans represent what you're going to be building, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're going to end up with a new boathouse now, and we're going to end up with a new house with an attached garage. The raised garage will be eliminated. And back to the cottage up front, that's going to remain exactly the way it is.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, fine. Okay, those are all the questions I have of Mr. Somjan. If the board has any additional questions.
Is the
Mr. Samchin, how many, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go on. Is the cottage currently being rented?
It is.
And will it continue to be rented?
Yes.
And how many bedrooms are in that cottage?
One.
Okay. So you have one parking spot. The driveway, as it is right now, if a person parked next to the cottage on the driveway, that would block access to the main house. How is that going to be taken care of?
If you note, let me go back to the site plan here. If you look at, sorry. Let me zoom in here for you. If you see the cottage right here, Mr. Chairman,
yep.
when you pull in the driveway, there's 90-degree parking, and we allocated one for the cottage and one for a guest. So they would be out of the way, allowing the driveway to continue to access the new garage and the house.
Okay. And do you have dimensions on that?
Dimensions on which?
On the parking areas that you have designated there.
It's existing. I don't know the exact dimensions, but this whole paved area right here next to the cottage is existing, and the tenant parks there now with a vehicle and doesn't block it. So based on the width of the driveway here, which is 18 foot, I would say this indentation is approximately 18 foot as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this lot is just over the legal size lot in the borough of Hopatcong of 15,000 feet, correct? It's 16,000?
It's just over, correct.
Just over. So I've got a boathouse that's going to raise up and get bigger. I got a structure in the front. I have a 2-car garage that's pretty big there, unlike the map that shows it as a small little cottage. And you're going to now put a giant garage with a full size. That I looked at the property today, and the upstairs on the existing house is maybe the equivalent of a bedroom size. Now we're going to take and make a giant, massive volume, lifting it up 2 floors, expanding the garage. I mean, this is still one property where I could put one house technically. Now I'm going to have a boathouse that's raising up. I'm adding a slip. I'm enlarging the house, that basically doubling the volume in the house. I'm still building when I take the closeness of the side of the house right up to the property line. I'm not cutting that back. I'm going right on top of it. So we're amplifying the wrong that was done years ago with the property line. And now we have an undetermined big giant bowling alley up above the undeclared bowling alley over the garage. I mean, there's just too much on this property for a property. And I don't care what was done years ago. We shouldn't be expanding it. We should be containing it. This is huge. I mean, I looked at the Sanjam. Do you have a picture of it that you can put up for the board?
Of the house?
Yeah.
I do.
Would you put it up, please?
Can you see that?
Anything closer?
That better?
Yep.
So I would just like, may I respond to some of your comments?
Sure.
So the area on the second floor was constructed at some point after the original cottage, because there is evidence as we start to, do some investigation of the house, where it was a cottage, just like most houses on Hopatcong, for summer use. And then as each resident moved in, they expanded on it. The most recent, I'm led to believe, was the Impinks, who put this floor up here. I'd like to make a note that that was used as a second apartment. And when we purchased it, rented, and we took that away to improve the circumstance that was there. And there was a bedroom, there was a kitchen, and there was a living room upstairs. And then that exterior door was added to allow ingress and egress. So we were removing that. And yes, we are taking that second floor that exists and bringing it out to the edge of the first floor footprint. But I point out to you that the house next door is 2 stories, in fact, 3 stories, because there's a walkout basement, and ours is not going to be bigger than that. By taking the detached garage and bringing it to the attached garage, I would like to just point out one thing to you on the plans, if I may. Unrelated, but related, my mother, who was 90 years old, passed away a couple of months ago. And so my family and I have been caring for her for the last several years of her life. And what I came to realize, other than getting old sucks, excuse my French, is that if this is going to be my wife's and my retirement home, part of what we did, which you can see in the plan, is that if we took the existing garage and just attached it to the house, then the footprint would be almost identical to what we're taking down. You had mentioned that this garage is getting bigger, and I'd like to point out that modern cars are certainly bigger, but in particular, this little 3-foot addition, which we're putting onto the garage, takes into consideration a ramp and a future elevator, recognizing that I learned a lot over these last 6 months caring for my mother, that if this is going to in fact be a retirement home for us, now's an opportunity to plan for it. And that's arguably really the only reason that the garage is getting a little bit bigger. I've talked to my neighbors who certainly are right there, and they didn't have an objection. I did ask if he would be willing to come and testify, and he said he would, if it was absolutely something that I wanted, but I didn't want to bother him. But I appreciate and understand your concerns, and our intent was not to make this worse, but to improve upon what was there aesthetically in the neighborhood, and to take an old property and improve upon it.
Okay, but what's over the garage? What is that mass space?
It's just storage.
Just storage?
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at the elevation, there's not even a full ceiling height. The plates over this area here is only about 5 feet. So there's not even a full ceiling or a full height 8 foot. As you can appreciate, there's not really a basement in this home. There's only a very small section of this big footprint only has a very small section that you can do anything in the way of storage. Everything else along here is crawl space. So in light of the fact that, again, we were building this garage, the space above the garage is going to remain unfinished. And at the end of the day, will be used for storage and to create some aesthetic that we felt is appealing to the street elevation of the building.
Can you go back to the picture, please?
Absolutely.
Now, if you picture that building, what is the resident volume now? Because right now it's kind of identified as a lot of things added onto it. But then you put the volume of the garage and add back. Even with the other garage gone, I have a mass structure there. And even though the house next to you is big, this is going to be double that size.
Okay, Greg.
Already have a house. Are you going to touch the house in the front? Are you going to paint it? Because it's old and decrepit. So is that the next application? I'm just curious. Because I don't want to sit there and look at that.
Yeah, I don't, right now, we have no plans to do anything to the cottage.
And
Greg, Greg, hold on a second here. I'd like to just, let me see if I can get this a little organized here, because we have it. I think the pictures really sort of explain it. I understand the board members' concern about overbuilding, but I think that if we just take a look at what's there and what you're proposing, and we have pictures of that. So I think the picture there, the overview that you have, I'd like you to just expand that up a little bit again, blow that up so that we can see what's there. So we've got the boathouse, we've got the house, we've got the detached garage behind it, and the cottage behind that. Now, you're going to take that house down and you're going to replace it, and we have a picture of what you're replacing it with, and it's on the cover sheet of the plans. So if you could just go to the cover sheet of the plans, we can talk about that garage and what it looks like and whether it's too massive or not, because it's on the cover sheet. So let's go there. So that is there. Let's pull up all three of those pictures. That's basically what we're proposing. So the top picture is that 2-car garage attached to the building. And that's what it's going to look like. And that's the massing, right?
Correct.
Now, the next picture down is the house from the lake. And the third picture down is the boathouse, showing what that's going to look like rebuilt, which is basically, it is the exact same size boathouse. It's just going up 3 feet, but the boathouse itself is not getting any more massive. So I would think that if you take a look at that original picture of what that property looks like today and the condition it's in, and the haphazard construction and disrepair, and you take a look at what we're proposing here, I don't know that it's any more massive than what's there. That lot right now is completely covered with structures and pavement. It is. And we're taking a substantial amount of that pavement away. We're taking away a structure, and we're going to have 3 structures now on the property instead of 4. So while I understand the concern, I don't see it.
On a legal lot, it's a fair buildable lot. You now have one mass structure, a small house, and a 2-story boathouse. My comment is, on the one side, we have 0.9 feet clearance from the yard setback. And we're not only going to do anything to move that in a little bit or any at all, we're going to just go right above it and redo the errors from the past and just go above it. We're not making any modifications to the thing, but we're also not fixing anything either.
I would just like to point out that based on the topography of my neighbor's property, they sit probably 5 or 6 feet above ours. It's only at the lake where the 2 properties kind of come together at the same elevation. So in reality, even with my adding on to that little bump out that you referred to, that's 0.9 feet off the property line, their house still towers over ours, even with that addition. So at the end of the
not
day,
0.9 feet from the property line, John. They're not that close to the property line.
they're maybe 5 feet.
Okay, 5 is different than 0.9.
Look, I understand your concern. And
how would you if you're a neighbor looking right into that? Oh, there's the wall. Boom. Now I have a space.
I can tell you with that particular neighbor, he's very happy with the improvements.
Well, no. We had that before. We can't present testimony.
I understand. I
from you
understand.
about what your neighbor thinks of your application. Your neighbor is welcome to come before the board and present the position that they have.
Understood.
I mean, the structures are clearly old and it's an improvement. However, I think it's an over-exaggerated improvement. I think it's too big for the lot. It's a legal size lot. Look at the house down right next door to you. Look at the yard they have. Should they now put a giant pole barn in?
Well, but if you look at the property next to that, they're right up on top of the lake, as is the property next to that, as is the property next to that. So,
Which is the problem in itself for that.
Okay,
particular road.
Mr. Haggerty,
Yes.
can we reel this in? We're talking about this property, this application. I don't care if it's a nuclear reactor next door. We're talking about this property.
Ron,
Please, let's get this reeled in.
Our position as a board is to look out for the neighborhood as well as the applicant, as well as the town. So yes, it does have bearing on the houses next door.
You're talking about aesthetics that's not in block and lot. You tell me what aesthetic definition is in block and lot. Tell me. Give me the definition of it. There is none.
Volume.
I don't think it's the aesthetics that we're talking about. I think one of the fundamental concerns is that we've got less than a 1 foot side yard setback, and we're talking about raising that area so that less than 1 foot setback will be preserved on that side. And I think that's probably one of the fundamental concerns that there would be. You are reducing impervious coverage. The cottage is only a 1-bedroom cottage. That's all very positive. Reducing the impervious is positive. But the difficult thing is although your neighbor may think, gee, I don't have a problem, it's forever. Once we do this, you have the house with less than a 1 foot setback, and how do you maintain it? And, boy, oh boy, that's right on the lot line.
I think one thing to consider here, which is important, is that even if you said, look, we're going to improve that by several feet, you don't really have, because of the shape of this property, the ability to do that. If you move this house over now you're moving it over to the other side yard. Okay.
Why not make it narrower?
It's a very narrow lot, and we're not.
What's the hardship? Make it narrower.
What's that?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. I mean,
You're adding so much volume to the home. What's the negative thing to detract and bring it in a little bit so it's more conforming?
Let's see what Bob Ray had to say.
Mr. Chairman, a lot of these conditions are pre-existing. I mean, he's taken 4 structures, building 3. I think maybe we should listen, maybe open it up to the public and see what they have to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do that. Bob Duncan, are you done for the moment?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay, you'll have another opportunity. Let's open this to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this application or question it? Colleen, I see you're here. You did send us a correspondence about this. So anybody from the public, please raise your hand. Colleen,
you're on.
up.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Colleen, please raise your right hand. Do you
I'm
swear
good.
the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes? Okay. And you are speaking on behalf of?
The Lake Hopatcong Commission. So just for background, the commission reviews land use board applications in each of the 4 municipalities to mitigate impacts to water quality of Lake Hopatcong. So the commission did submit a letter. I don't know if that was provided to the applicant or his attorney. But we do make some of the same comments as the board has said tonight. So I won't really repeat those except to say, we do see that you're reducing impervious coverage. However, the lot still remains significantly above the ordinance maximum. So there may be some potential to mitigate some of those impacts with green stormwater infrastructure or by further reducing impervious coverage. And the second thing I just wanted to note that maybe hasn't been talked about tonight is that there could be some DEP permits that you would be required to get in order to raise or alter your bulkhead or raise the boathouse. So those are noted in our letter. You might want to review that and just make sure that you're meeting those requirements. And then the last thing we included was that the board engineer noted that the limit of disturbance exceeds 5,000 square feet, and that would require a soil erosion and sediment control permit. And that the commission would recommend that the board request a soil erosion and sediment control plan prior to be reviewed prior to any approvals. And that's all we had.
Thank you,
Mr.
Colleen.
Chair, yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's Bern Heffley again. If I could address those items. So we did actually get a copy of the letter, and I did have a chance to review it. And I think that Colleen is correct on all of these items. We don't have an issue actually with anything that is in her letter. And specifically, I think we have addressed the cottage issue and the prior non-conforming use. We did do that. In terms of the impervious coverage, we specifically made sure that we reduced it as part of this application, because I understand what the Lake Hopatcong Commission is looking for. So we took it upon ourselves to already do that. And so we did address that. The DEP approval, she's absolutely correct in terms of what we need there, and we will get those permits. We've looked into those and the permit by rule, and we are satisfied that we'll be able to do that. With regard to the soil erosion sediment control plan, we have no issue providing that either. And in terms of the reduction in the impervious coverage, we have added additional vegetation in terms of water quality, which is what they were looking for. So all of the items in the letter are fine with us, and we take no issue.
Thank you, Mr. Heffley. Appreciate that.
Colleen, thank you very much for getting this to us in a timely manner.
Absolutely.
Okay, anybody else from the public want to comment or question this application? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen, and in the reactions, raise your hand. Seeing
Mr.
none,
Chairman, I
will
don't
bring
see
it back
any.
to the-
I don't see any.
Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Okay, anybody from the board want to continue discussion of this application?
I just have one question for Mr. Somjen. Is there any consideration to actually not, to take out that bump out so that you're not right against the line and re-architect that slightly so that you put on a full second story, but you don't necessarily go up over the bump out, maybe take that bump out so that you're not as close to the side yard?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. And I don't know if you saw on the plan, I can bring it back up. Part of the reason we, again, for clarity, the first floor is existing. That's the entrance today. That's what's 0.9 feet off the property line.
Right.
Part of the reason we are putting that second floor on there is that's where the future elevator is going to go. It's one of the few areas where we can get two spaces to align in the future. It's at the end of the ramp. So from a design perspective, that was one of the considerations. For us to potentially eliminate that bump out, that's part of the kitchen, it's part of the master bathroom, it's part of the elevator. It would require a complete redesign of the project.
Okay, thank you for your response.
Again, let's go over the above the garage, because the other garage just is, it's just a framed garage. That's all that space, all that volume that you have is undeclared storage. No, that's not going to stay storage.
Well, at the present time, we have no intent of finishing it, not putting mechanical systems in there. So I'm not sure what it is you'd like me to say. The proposal is an attic. And so
then just knock that second floor of the garage off.
And okay, right now our application includes what is a 5-foot plate with an area that we can use for storage. So I prefer not to knock it off because it's there, and while people are constructing, it's easy to do. The basement doesn't really exist. There's very little storage in the rest of the home. So, we're asking for that approval. I'm not sure what the concern is with it, because let's hypothetically say that in 10 years, I wanted to make that a man cave or a recreational space, the exterior aesthetic would remain unchanged. So it wouldn't impact the zoning board from that perspective. It's an internal renovation if we ever consider doing it. At the present time, there's no intent to do that. So,
Or you could put bedrooms in.
Now-
Look at this. What's the volume of that area?
well, it's the size of the garage, so 400 square feet-ish, 500 square feet-ish.
What is the height, the headroom height in that loft area?
At the outer walls, it's 5 feet.
Okay, so.
And then there's no ceiling in it. So technically it's a exposed pitch interior.
And how do you access that space, Mr. Simosian?
You want me to pull the drawing back up?
Yeah.
It's through the mechanical room on the second floor. Bear with me here. You see right here in the mechanical room?
Yes.
So you have to go through this mechanical room to get in there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've heard enough testimony on this. I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to have him come back because if the board approves, this is an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use application. So the applicant at the next hearing should establish that non-conforming use. Then the board should vote in that regard. And if that's in the affirmative, then the board should move on to the motions for approval of the plans or not approval of the plans.
I thought we agreed that as a condition of the approval, Mr. Heffley would provide a written letter from Mr. Kane and the tax records. I thought that's where we left that. So we wouldn't have to come back.
That was my understanding.
I think you're going to provide the tax records. We have to evaluate those records and make sure that they're such that does provide proof.
Mr. Haggerty, would it be satisfactory if we moved the application tonight and voted on it, and if we provided those items prior to the resolution and the board was satisfied, we could move ahead with the resolution?
How can we vote on this if we haven't established a pre-existing non-conforming use? You're asking that be expanded. You're asking for C variances without having the D variance granted. So I know you want to have this happen tonight, but I just don't see how it can. We have to have that documentation to establish it. I assume that's going to be produced.
I understand the legal requirement. I get it. All right, let us do that then. We will provide you the information from Mr. Kane.
What?
Okay.
Okay. Now what we're looking for again is a certification from Martin Kane verifying the Sanborn map, and then we're looking for tax assessment records to show the continuity of the use. Or you could bring in a witness if I know we're running out of old timers, frankly, in a back on, but that go back that far. But if there's somebody familiar with the property and says, yeah, that cottage house has been occupied and used as a separate residence forever, that's fine.
As a layperson, I appreciate your indulgence. I just need someone on the legal end of things to clarify something for me. I was under the impression that the suggestion came from you, Mr. Haggerty, in the beginning, that as I explained, Mr. Kane has no obligation to come on my behalf. And I can assure you, I'm not going to find an old timer who's going to tell us that in the 1950s, this was there. So between the map and the tax records that I got from the Hopatcong department, I'm not clear on why we couldn't do it as conditional. Obviously, no resolution would be issued.
My advice to the board is it's inappropriate. We should not do it. We should have those tax records. We should have had them 10 days ahead of time. They should have been produced to the board 10 days ahead so that we would have the opportunity to look at those and verify those records. We shouldn't receive those tonight. This is a fundamental issue, whether there's a pre-existing non-conforming use. This shouldn't be treated casually. This lasts forever. So that is my
one more. Greg, Mr. Haggerty's correct on this issue. One has to come before the other. I understand why he wants it, and I understand why the board needs to vote on the D variance first. So we're gonna have to give that to him. I got no problem with that, Mr. Haggerty. Mr. Somjen, we're gonna give him that, and we're gonna come back at the next meeting.
Also, we haven't discussed the Mcdonald letter at all.
So we can discuss that also. We did, in response to that, Mr. Chairman, all of the technical review comments, there were 4 of them in this letter, were actually addressed in revised plans that we submitted. And those are the plans that are actually before you. So not only do we have no issue with them, we've incorporated them into the plans that are before you.
And how about a permit from the Sussex County Health Department for the proposed change to the relocation of the sewer pump?
Yes, we will be providing that too, as you know, in the normal course as a condition of approval. If you've given us an approval, we will get that.
I don't believe that has to go to the Sussex County Health Department. I think that's done right through the borough, the sewer department.
Yeah, it's the moving of the grinder pump, right? So
Correct. That's a Mr. O'Connor permit.
right. So, but as any condition of approval, we would then go and do that, obviously.
Okay. All right.
But we have, yeah. So anyway, so all of those comments are fine. They've been incorporated into the plans, and we have no issues with them.
Right. Okay. Then.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Chairman. At this point, can we say we're done with the testimony on the construction portion of it? That the only thing we have to verify is the tax records and the maps, that they're, you know, that they predate zoning, and that's all we have left to do here?
I believe so.
Okay, we will.
That's correct. Your testimony and presentation is.
Yeah, we have to do the D variance first, and then we can do the rest.
Okay.
And
Then we just take the vote.
we're done with the testimony.
That's correct.
Alan,
Go ahead.
did it go to the public yet? Did we do that?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Okay. Let's have a motion then to come back to put this off and come back another time. Mr. Heffley and Mr. Somjen, when do you want to come back?
We can come back at the very next meeting because I'll supply the information tomorrow.
Okay, then, Nicole, does that work?
Okay, so I
We
mean,
have room. Do we have room on next meeting?
So that's what I'm
next
checking with
meeting-
Nicole.
Next meeting is 3 new build applications as of right now. So
Ron, I don't think this application coming back is going to take very long.
I think it's going to take 5 minutes.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, then the next meeting would be
February 1st.
February 1st.
I need, Mr. Heffley, everything for the February 1st meeting, though, your 10-day requirement is this Friday by noon. So I know it's already Tuesday night. I need it by Friday by noon.
Not a problem.
Okay,
And this
Do we
would be
have-
without further notice.
can we have a motion to
I'll make the
continue this
motion.
until February 1st without notice?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
You made the motion and Bob
Second.
seconded.
Am I allowed to call, I'm sorry, am I allowed to call on the mayor and councilman right now? or
No.
no?
No,
they-
no.
they recuse themselves.
No.
Got it. Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney. Sorry, Mrs. Crock.
Oh, Mark.
Yes.
Mark said yes also.
Can I get him back? I lost him. Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Dellarina,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Mike Francis, Mayor Francis, and Rich Schindler, if you want to come back in, you may, because we're done with this application at the moment. And I will remind everyone that the pesky application will be heard on February 15th.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time and Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you in about a week or two.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Samjian and Mr. Heffley for showing up tonight. Zoning officer report. Do you have anything for us, Bill?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, discussion. Is there anything for discussion? I think, Ron, you have to give people a little bit of information about your email.
Oh, on the cyber training?
Yes.
On the cyber training, the cyber training is part of our ability to get insurance for those things that will happen in the cyber world. And all our employees and people that are on the hopatcong.org email just have the general knowledge of what not to look at, what not to accept, what to delete. You get a suspicious email, you should send it immediately to QuickText at support@quicktext.com and let them deal with it, because that gives them the opportunity to write our firewall protections and protect us from those things. The PowerPoint file that I sent you with illustrations of the files that are there to get you on the cyber training. They're not automatic links. They are examples of what you should put in your computer to get to those options in the training. Once you're registered in the mail training, save that link, because we may have more training going up. So you get into that link and it shows you what to go to once you get into the system. There's no automatic links there. So just walk through those programs on your computer, take the training, and please go to the end and confirm that you did it and print your certificate. We may need that as evidence. The database that collects this after it's done has been a bit cranky, and I want to make sure that we have your certificate so that we can prove that everybody has taken that class, so that we get the ability to get our deductibles that we're looking for and the proper insurance that we're looking for through the GIF, which is our insurance company, to get us the most protection we can for the borough on cyber protection. Okay?
So which one do we have to do?
The cyber training.
Just the cyber training, because
cyber training right now.
Okay, as I mentioned to you, I got six emails today or yesterday, survivor training, cyber training, et cetera, et cetera. So just the cyber training is all I have to do.
Just the cyber training. That's all you need to take. It's about 10 minutes of life you will never get back, but take it and print your certificate. And I can turn that into, I'm a commissioner on the GIF. I can take that to the GIF and say that we've completed that part of it. This is the first of 3 years that we have to go through to get the insurance that we're looking to get. Cyber insurance, I'll be done with this, but cyber insurance right now is extremely difficult to get because there's so many things going on in our world right now where bad people are doing things on the internet. So I can't emphasize it enough. This is just the first step in the rodeo that we're in.
Okay.
Mr. Tappan, would you put an email out telling us exactly what you just said so we can follow your instructions?
You got it, Mr. Gaffney.
Mr. Tappan, I understand this has to be done by the 22nd.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So time is of the essence, correct?
See you in the morning.
Mr. Gaffney, if you
Yes,
want to call me while you have your email open with the PowerPoint, the fake PowerPoint, if you want to call me, I will walk you through it.
God bless you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I went through it as well, Ron. I got stopped midway through it. There was a problem, and I haven't been able to restart it. I did reach out to support for the application, but they've yet to respond. But this was only, I think, 2 days ago that I actually went through it.
Well, the problem with this, gang, is everybody that is involved with the GIF, and these are multiple municipalities throughout the state. We're the largest insurance company. I'm the largest insurance company in the state of New Jersey that represents the most municipalities. Everybody's jumping on this. The insurance companies, your employees should be trained first, and then we go to the next areas that we have to provide in the tier. So everybody's crashing the system.
Okay.
So Ron,
thank you
I
very
didn't get
much.
your email, so
I'll get it to you. Look, we're trying to get as high percentage as we can. We don't have to be 100%. But Jimmy, I'll get it to you because I didn't
Okay.
I'll get it from Nicole, your email. If we get a higher percentage than what we're at right now, we'll be in good shape. Right now, I got 10% of my employees that took it. If I can penetrate past the 50%, we're going to be good here, people. So
okay.
So if we can get there, we're good.
Mr. Tappan, always ask for more than what you need, never less than what.
You got.
You should have said 50%.
I tried that, and you know what, Mark? I tried that in my contract, and that just didn't work. So I'll work on it a little bit at a time.
All right, let's move on to resolutions. We've got 3 resolutions tonight. First is 38 Market LLC. Hearing date was December 7th, 2021. Motion is in order to approve the 38 Market LLC resolution granting an extension for approval, variance approval at 165 Lakeside Boulevard, block 11306, lot 3. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry. Mr. Bongiovanni,
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Next, Dalen Hernandez. A motion is in order to approve the Hernandez resolution for variance approval authorizing a storage shed, patio and driveway extension at 312 Windsor Avenue, block 40206, lot 17, also December 7th, 2021.
Make a motion?
Okay,
I'll second it.
that was Ray.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Abstain.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Am I able to vote on this? Was that a D variance?
Was that a D?
I'm not sure. I forget.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was.
Okay, yes, then.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. And third, John Hendrickson, December 21st, 2021. Motion is in order to approve the Hendrickson resolution granting variance approval for the continuation of installation of a carport located at 171 Rollins Trail, block 31006, lot 5.
Make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr.
Duncan
Gaffney.
can't vote on this. Duncan voted against the, or did you vote against it or for it?
Oh, he did, I believe, right?
I know I voted against it, so I
think it
can't vote.
was two of you.
I think Duncan did also.
Abstain.
Good memory. Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Delarina,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
and Mr. Gilbert, you were also against this one, right?
That is correct, so I can't vote. Escrow refund, Hughes, 102 Chincope, $612.50 for information only. Shall we pay the bills?
Pay the bill.
Oh,
Bon Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay, let's see. I will now open the meeting to the public. If the public, anybody from the public would like to address the board on any issue at all, please go to the bottom of your screen and in reactions, raise your hand. Anybody at all? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. Old
Great
business,
dog, Danielle.
any old business? Any new business? Mr. Mayor, do you have a resignation, I believe?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me, but we'll move up one of our next alternates to fill his spot.
Okay, so this would be the last meeting for, who is it, Mr.
Riley?
Riley?
Yeah.
You forgot him already.
Yep.
Wow, that was quick.
God.
So Mr. Riley has resigned from the board because he plans to move closer to Mendham. He has sold his house and he's moving closer to Mendham to his child and grandchildren. Is there any other new business? Judy?
motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Stay
Thank
safe,
you very
folks.
much, everyone, for attending tonight.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Everyone, have a good weekend.
Take care of that puppy.
Have a good vacation, Bobby.
Thank
Take
you.
care, Bob. Have a good vacation.